Hello, I'm Pat O'Melia, and I'm the host of the Jersey City Show. The Jersey City Show is a one-hour show, which we split into two, focusing on the Jersey City Medical Center. My guest in this special presentation of Med Center is the president of the Jersey City Medical Center, Joe Scott, and the head of EMS, Robert Luckeritz. And we're going to focus in this part two segment on RFPs, what an RFP is, the contract, what first responders are, what the difference between a for-profit and not-for-profit hospital, and why do you need to know that? Because it is very possible. If you need ambulance service, the ambulance that comes to you may take you out of Jersey City, may take you or your loved ones out of the city to Bayonne or Hoboken, to a for-profit hospital, which can cost you money, depending on your insurance package. The Bayonne Hospital is considered the highest priced hospital in the United States of America. Yes, Bayonne, New Jersey. Your insurance pays 80% or whatever your insurance policy is, you're on the hook for the remainder of whatever is owed after the insurance company pays. The number one reason in the United States people file for personal bankruptcy is medical bills. I encourage you to contact Mayor Steve Fulop and implore him to keep the contract with the Jersey City Medical Center. Somewhere along the line, all of us will be in that ambulance one of these days. Somewhere along the line, we're all going to be at the hospital. We want to be in Jersey City. We want to be home. We want to be in a not-for-profit, and we want to be in a technically advanced hospital. And that's what the Jersey City Medical Center is. With all the awards they received, they earned it. Watch part two. Joseph, an RFP is generated.
Correct.
Were you alarmed when you heard it was going to be an RFP coming out, or just another? You figured another bid?
I knew this was happening.
It was a different game this time.
I think we knew. We kept hearing that there was going to be some competition for this contract.
Now, RFP is request for proposal. Basically, it's a bid.
Right.
So you do your bid. Was there anything unusual in this RFP?
Well, the original RFP had some issues that we were concerned about, just from a compliance standpoint. And I think the city, after they had issued the RFP, recognized it also and actually ended up changing the RFP.
Now, one of the problems with the RFP, there was a fee that the city wanted to impose on ambulance services.
Right. They wanted, well, what they were looking for was for us to give back some of the revenue that we get from charging people for picking them up when there's an emergency.
So they wanted some sort of, like, I guess, a taxation or a big, as far as people in Jersey City would call it.
Well, I think they called it revenue sharing. And
they wanted to cut no matter any way you looked at it. They wanted a $2.6 million cut.
Yeah, I think there was an issue around giving the city back some money for the ambulance service that we provided.
Now, what happened with that?
So then we were told by the city that the RFP was going to be put on hold while they investigated, I think, that issue. And they actually reissued another RFP.
Now, at this point, I'm reading the RFP. Later? I actually got a copy of it now, the RFP.
Right.
It's probably one of the worst written RFPs I've ever read. But,
well, we're competing for this, so I don't want to disparage anyone.
Well, Steve's known me for a long time. And actually, I told Mayor Fulop this is the worst written RFP I have ever read.
You can say that, but I am not saying that.
Now, they wanted 2.6 as a big on the ambulance services. And obviously, they researched that, and there's a Hatch Act. There's a bunch of laws in place where you have Medicare reimbursement that, you can't get a buck on that.
Right.
So they changed it,
right,
and they put in this first responder situation.
Right.
Now, first off, explain what a first responder is, because that's different than the ambulance guys.
Sure.
So let's make sure everybody understands. This first responder is far different than the ambulance. Go ahead, Rob.
Sure. So basically what the first responder program is designed to do is to allow certain assets or certain resources in the community to get to a call potentially before the ambulance. So the idea is that, when you have resources in the community, whether they're fire trucks as we do in Jersey City or police cars as they do in some other communities, that there's a chance that they might be closer than the ambulances and where they're located. So in those situations where it's particularly life-threatening or there's potential for some serious bodily harm, they'll send everybody at the call. It's kind of throwing as much as you can at the call to make sure that somebody with the resources to do CPR, to defibrillate, to do some basic life-saving administration is there as quickly as is possible.
Do they also assess the situation? Are they on a radio saying we're giving some oxygen, there's blood, or they communicating with an ambulance?
They have the ability to communicate, but they're usually there. Again, our average response time is about 6 minutes. So if the fire truck gets there just a few minutes beforehand, it takes a few minutes to assess someone. So usually by the time they would get to that point where they might be giving a report or something like that, we're shortly behind, or we've arrived, or in some situations we arrive even before the fire truck arrives.
And 6 minutes is way below the standard, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, you're way on the plus side. You had two situations with. Just one came to light today out with the, was it Milburn shopping mall where the Hoboken gentleman was shot? Took the ambulance 18 minutes. There was a volunteer ambulance corps there. 18 minutes to respond. Then ran into the situation that the garage was too low to get the ambulance in.
Yep.
Wow.
Because I have a van. There's some garages I can't get in because of the van. And they had to run up 5 levels of this parking garage with a stretcher. Then you had a situation in New York City where they implemented a new 9/11 system. And somebody dropped the ball. They didn't read it right. And there was a delay with that ambulance being dispatched. And the young girl passed on. There was really no correlation between the lateness of the ambulance and the girl because she had been hit by a stray SUV. But I guarantee you there's some heavy lawsuit coming. But going back to first responder and the 6 minutes, I just want to emphasize that 6 minutes.
Yeah, and that's our average response time. And one of the things that's very interesting, we actually track our response times very differently than some other EMS agencies do or some other public safety entities do. We track our response times from the moment we pick up the telephone. And that's quite a bit different. A lot of places they say our average response time might be 4 or 5 minutes, but that average response time is from the moment that they dispatch the ambulance, the time that the ambulance arrives. We want to be harder on ourselves. We want to make sure that we're assessing our ability to screen 911 calls, much like they do. The issue in New York had to do with the delay between the 911 call coming in and when the ambulance was dispatched. So we want to make sure that we look at those numbers.
You start your clock at the phone call.
As soon as the phone
start
rings.
their clock when the ambulance gets the call.
Exactly.
But continue with the first responders.
That's the gist of it. Basically, it's an opportunity to, when you have particularly critically ill individuals, to basically send as many resources as you can that might be closer to make sure that someone gets there as quickly as possible.
Now, the fire department may first respond along with the medical center or whatever hospital is getting the call. Now, we've all seen where the fire department, I'm the son of a Jersey City firefighter, where there's a hook and ladder out there, there's 2 engines, there's the red Durango out there, and the person slipped and fell on the steps up there. But the JCFD's got all the equipment out. Now, I don't mind that, because I know these guys want to get out of the barn. They want to get in the truck and get out of there because they want to get out of the house. And then there isn't a fire every minute of the day for the fire guys, so they like to get out and run the trucks a little bit. There's a hell of an expense to running that equipment. And many a times, you're right. Yeah, you'll see the ambulance there, or you're definitely going to see the ambulance and the fire trucks there, usually simultaneously. And with that 6 minutes, we're probably there, the Med Center, ahead of the fire department. But that became an interesting part with the RFP, first responders, because that $2.6 million that they had originally in a fee for the ambulance services now was rewritten for $2.6 million to cover first responders. And in the RFP, you had the option of paying the city $2.6 million
Right.
or providing first responder services
That's
yourself.
correct. Right.
And since you had the ability, you opted to do the first
well,
responder yourself.
I mean, there's a couple of issues. How do you arrive at the $2.6 million? We literally had 4 days to...
That's a tough number to come up with, yes.
Yeah, we had 4 days to respond. We wanted to make sure we were compliant. We did have the infrastructure in place to provide first responder service. And so from our perspective, and being fiscally responsible for our hospital, we chose to go ahead and provide the service.
Now, keep in mind, you're in this business. This is what you do.
Right.
You have the
That's
ambulance,
exactly
you got EMTs, you got
Right.
paramedics.
That's exactly right.
You got some guys that are probably coming to the end of their career as an EMT or a paramedic that can become a first responder with a slew. Not knocking the Jersey City Fire Department because they've gone through training also. But this is what you do.
Right.
The fire department fights fires. And actually, I would assume if there is a fire in progress, the the fire department isn't doing first responder.
Right.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, just want to get that in there.
Yeah.
And that 2.6 million, I don't know how you control that number when you were
Well,
sending fire trucks and engines
I
and
mean, that's a
hooking ladders
whole
out
another
there.
issue, you know. How do you
I never got an
control that
answer
number?
to that. Nobody
Yeah.
gave me that answer.
And you know what? In reading the RFP didn't say, you know what, you get more points
I
for
didn't get to
paying
that
for
point.
it.
There's an interesting thing. In the RFP, Jersey City, there were points allocated for every procedure you could do, every step of the RFP.
Right.
And what became interesting, when it came to the cost factor, I believe it was called, if you're providing the first responder services yourself, you seem to get 25 points. If you were willing to pay the city $2.6 million, that bidder received 50 points, which really doesn't make sense because it should be a wash. If somebody's going to supply the first responders, the city doesn't have to pay anything. If somebody's going to pay $2.6 million for the city to provide these services, the city's not gaining.
Right.
If you look at it, I think you would rather have your firefighters in the house ready to fight fires than doing first responders, but that's how I would look at managing my firemen. But there shouldn't have been any bonus because really, as far as the city's concerned, it's a wash. If you handle it, fine, we're fine. If we handle it, you got to pay us 2.6. But really, there shouldn't have been 25 points allotted because
And you know, Pat,
25 extra points because you agreed to pay 2.6.
Right. And the other interesting point of all this is that when you add up the total points, we win.
And now there were five people on the committee, and each one allocated 5 points for this, 10 points for this, and then there was that big 25-50 bonus. The Med Center, out of the 5 voters, 3 voted in favor of the other service, and 2 voted in favor of the medical center. But it was extremely close with the 3 who voted for McCabe, I believe it is. If you withdrew that 25 points, the Med Center cleaned house. If you added up all the points from all 5 judges, I'll say, Med Center had more points than the McCabe people, even with the bonus of that extra 25 points.
And if you look at the quality criteria that they used, we won hands down. Hands down. Every single voter gave us more points than McCabe.
Now, there's a legal question right now as to those allocation of the points that 2.6 million got you 50
I don't know
points.
if it's as much a legal question
25,
as a, yeah,
well,
but there's some controversy around that.
There's no benefit to the city. If the city's going to perform first responders, you're paying them 2.6.
Right.
If you provide it, the city doesn't need the 2.6. So I don't
Right.
see how it's worth 25 more points.
Yeah, and you know, to the city's benefit and to the mayor's credit, he's getting the EMS service for $3.9 million less than what he was paying last year. So that saved the city.
Because of how you got the medical center back on its feet.
Correct.
And this isn't the case just here in Jersey City. You did some bidding up in the North Hudson also.
Yep.
It was 0 bid.
Yep.
Now, we're going to come back from break. I'm going to break now, then we can finish this out. I don't want to get into the McCabe and the other bidder and then have to break for commercial. Because I control the show, I can break when I want. We're going to break for commercial. You're watching the Jersey City Show. It's about to get good. We'll be right back. Seeing the ER doctor at the Jersey City Medical Center has never been easier. If you're sick, you just click. Go to libertyhealth.org, and here's how it works. Click Skip the Wait. Select your time and check in now. Enter your symptoms, your personal information. Click Proceed to Confirmation, and the doctor's waiting for you. The Jersey City Medical Center. Make Hudson County's #1 hospital your first choice. We're back. You're watching the Jersey City Show. It's our final segment. We got Joe and Rob from the medical center. He's the president, and he handles governmental and emergency, is it?
Yep.
Emergency services?
Yep.
You should give me your card someday. All right, so you do the RFP, you lost. The mayor actually makes the announcement, Mayor Stephen Fulop, that he's going with McCabe.
Right.
But it was interesting, too, with the RFP, because originally it was CarePoint McCabe. Then somehow it
Yeah.
became like a Sears and Roebuck. All of a sudden, Roebuck disappeared. Now we got just Sears. It just became McCabe.
Yeah, and honestly, to this day, I don't understand why. Because here's the other thing. So when you look at the response to the RFP, which is a public document, anybody can go look at it. The financials for Bayonne Hospital were included as part of the RFP. Because when you look at the financials of McCabe Ambulance, they don't have $2.6 million to pay the city. So,
Oh, and by the way,
It was-
McCabe owns how much of McCabe Ambulance? CarePoint owns how much of McCabe?
I think 70%.
Approximately 70%.
Right.
So again, actually, where CarePoint's looking, they have their own insurance, right? Health insurance. CarePoint, don't they have some sort of?
Well, they're
CarePoint?
trying to do an insurance plan, but
They're
that's a
kind of like
whole,
trying to
that's
keep
a whole other
everything.
show.
It's
Yeah.
what else? It's almost like a pyramid deal. But go ahead. You got McCabe.
Yeah. So, if I were the city, changing the format and the principles of the bid become problematic, because who now is going to pay for this? If CarePoint's name's off the bid and it's just McCabe, that would imply that McCabe's going to pay the $2.6 million.
Which they
Look at their
don't.
financials. They lost money last year. So they're going to do this for nothing. They're going to increase the number of people that they're going to have respond in Jersey City. I will tell you, the revenue that we get from picking up patients does not cover the cost of the EMS service. So they're going to subsidize that, and they're going to pay $2.6 million for first responders. And oh, by the way, they're going to pay up to $400,000 for 911 call service that they're going to pay back to the city.
It's almost $3 million. now.
And then they're going to throw some money in for, I don't know, housing the ambulances or something.
Now, in any
So-
profit situation, when somebody spends $1, usually you charge $3 more. If you're
right.
buying a bottle of soda for 25 cents, you're going to charge
Right.
$1. You buy a soda at the store,
Right.
it's $1.25. You go to ShopRite, you're buying that same soda for 25 cents.
Right.
CarePoint's going to get that $3 million back, or McCabe. Well, listen, it's CarePoint McCabe. I don't care.
I would guess.
I
would guess
they're
they
going to
wouldn't.
get that $3 million back to the tune of about $12 million.
Well-
but let's not even get into their finances, which
Right.
leaves
Well,
something.
we talked about the out-of-network thing and pushing patients through the ER. The ambulance is a perfect way to do that.
Now,
Right?
the
Take them up
other
in an
thing-
ambulance and take them to the ER.
Do we want Jersey City residents out of Jersey City?
Well,
going
that's
to
the other
Bayonne
issue, yeah.
or Hoboken? That's a question
Right.
there. But the real fundamental question is, can McCabe handle Jersey City?
Well,
I
I'll let
think
Rob answer that one.
I think he has 14 buses or ambulances, which he has a responsibility to the city of Bayonne, for which I believe he receives $800,000 a year.
Yeah, that's curious
But-
also.
and interesting, you would charge Bayonne $800,000 a
So
year,
for
but
seven-
give Jersey City
right.
too, they had $2.6 million.
So for 7,000 calls in Bayonne, he gets
$800,000.
$800,000. And in Jersey City, he's going to turn around and do it for nothing and subsidize the city $2.6 million. Why would he want to do that?
Something. Now, as in the caucus meeting I attended, Mickey McCabe was there. He said if he was to get the contract today, he would go out and buy, I think it was 14 or 16 ambulances.
Yeah, something along those lines.
I can't go to a dealership. I can't go down to DeFeo Buick and say, I would like to order me 14 ambulances today. It takes a while to get them. For a while, they thought they were just buying them off the Med Center, but the Med Center is not selling them.
Right.
Now, you have 14 ambulances, and I think that's what their fleet size is right now. I think it's 14. You have Bayonne as your responsibility, and now you're going to take up Jersey City. You can't cover Jersey City with 14. How many does the medical center have?
We have about 40, just less than 40 ambulances.
Almost 40, 38, 34,
39,
something like
yeah.
that. And this guy's got 14, which he's covering Bayonne with. And now he's going to intend to take care of Jersey City. It doesn't work. We don't want residents of Jersey City taken out of Jersey City, and we need response time. If you got 14 units, you're not going to cover the city like you do.
I mean, come on. And Jersey City is a much more complicated street grid, more populated area, much different environment than Bayonne. So covering Bayonne is simple. In fact, I'd like to cover Bayonne for nothing. You know, we should go out there.
Well,
and,
I'm sure there's a bid's going to come out someday.
Well, so someday,
you know, someday
we're
you
going
might
to
be able
zero
to get
bid
that
in Bayonne,
opportunity.
right?
But when
Right,
when you get down to, when you look at the nuts and bolts of both concerns, the Jersey City Medical Center
Right.
and CarePoint, and throw McCabe in there. McCabe's got to be in there somehow, even though they're on the bid, but it wasn't their finances that got them so far, and they don't have the money to do what they're proposing to do.
Right.
I can't come up with a reason to go with CarePoint. One of the big scary things is they're for-profit. As we said earlier, the main reason people file for bankruptcy in the United States is medical bills. These guys are out to make $1. You're out to provide good health care and reinvest into the hospital.
Right.
In Jersey City's only not-for-profit hospital.
And by the way, I live here too. So I want what's best for our residents. Rob lives here. You know, we have 41% of our employees live here in Jersey City. We have a vested interest in making sure that this service
It
continues.
says Jersey City on it. It's
Yes.
our hospital.
Yeah.
So where are we now with this? Now, listen, I understand Steve's on, he's on the ledge there. I think the more Mayor Fulop learned about the concerns, the hospital and CarePoint, and the more he learned about the RFP, and the more he learned about medical and health, the more he's very concerned about this RFP.
Yeah, I think
if he had a mulligan on this, it would be a different.
Well, I think you know I think the city's taking a very close look at this, and I think they want to make sure they do the right thing. And you know, I have to applaud the mayor for taking a second look and pulling back and saying, you know what, let's make sure this thing is done right. Let's make sure that we do the right thing for the residents of Jersey City. And I have to say that he's been very thoughtful about this process, and that's a good thing because I think this is a critical issue. Look, you know, I had discussions with him. We're getting ready to have host the Super Bowl. Not probably a good time to change our ambulance contract, right? We're going to close the Pulaski Skyway. What the heck's going to happen?
Oh, and forget the Bayonne. They're going to be a little busy over there with the Bayonne Bridge.
They got the Bayonne Bridge that's going to go down or get closed for a while. So, I mean, there's a whole host of traffic nightmares getting ready that we're going to experience. And so I think it's really thoughtful that we take a step back and make sure that we're really ready to do this.
Well, I think the city needs to look at the actual numbers, the posted numbers, the Medicare numbers that show how a for-profit hospital charges. You're not that. We've already showed those numbers on this show.
Right.
You know, like you said, where you would charge $5,000, they'll charge $25,000.
Right.
At the end, if you have one of those insurances where they pay 80, you pay 20, or whatever your co-pays are, you're paying that difference.
Right.
And that difference could be huge amounts of money.
Yeah.
And the other concern we have, that's 6 minutes.
Well, you talked about some of the bills. You said there was a bill that you.
I have one on my desk. Should have got that in the break. For that matter, we'll cut it in as we're talking about it. We'll cut it in. It shows this woman was in the hospital, I believe, 3 days. It's like $70,000.
Yeah.
3 days.
You know,
and and I'm not in medicine. She was getting transfusions. There was something about her body was actually consuming the protein in her muscles.
Okay.
And they had to keep giving her IV treatment, and she was in there for 3 days.
Right.
And she eventually, I think she signed herself out because she felt better, but they wanted to keep her in there. She got a bill for $70,000, and we'll show you that. We'll redact the name and all. But Hoboken, there's situations there where there's a website where people complain about it. But the nuts and bolts of it is, you're a not-for-profit. You're not going to be charging what these people are. There's no boats. There's no Lexuses. There's no dividends. There's no balloon payments.
There's no house in the Hamptons.
You got no house in the Hamptons. None of that stuff. You're here in Jersey City. You guys have been here for 130 years. You've done an excellent job, and you take the liability of the ambulance service. And I want to bring that up. What happened in New York with that young girl who was hit with an SUV? Even though I don't know if the ambulance getting there a minute earlier would have made a difference, there's going to be a huge lawsuit in New York City. The situation with the Hoboken gentleman that was killed in a carjacking, there's going to be a lawsuit there. These guys handle liability, and the reason they can handle it is they're professionals. We're not. It's not what we do. We're the city of Jersey City. Let these guys take care of medical concerns, medical emergencies. I really think we should stay out of that altogether. I'm not even with the not-for-profit, I'm not even sure why we're going out for RFPs with a not-for-profit.
Yeah,
and you're part of the city.
Right.
It is the Jersey City Medical Center.
I mean, we are the long-standing institution that has remained a not-for-profit in the area. We're the trauma center. So when there's a trauma, you got to get people there to the hospital in a golden hour. We have surgeons in-house 24/7 waiting. We were the cardiac center. We take care of the sickest little tiny babies. We're the big trauma center.
Listen, let's hear it. All the awards that you guys have.
Yeah, we're the Magnet Hospital. We're A safety rated. We're been named Castle Conley Top Hospital. So we have all of these things that we've been focusing on, that have changed what we've done. We've recruited 250 new physicians to the medical staff. I mean, we have done a great job of really changing the way care is provided at the medical center.
And the hospital is
And-
recognized
Yes.
for the technology,
Right.
state of the art. It's the only state of the art hospital we have in Jersey City. For
Yeah.
that matter, the other ones in Hudson County are kind of antiquated. I think, maybe Palisades Hospital is probably number 2
Right.
as far as technology. But when you get into Hoboken, Bayonne, and especially Christ Hospital, that needs a total renovation. Even
does.
the Navigate, I think even
Yeah, the
spoke to
Navigate
that.
report talked about it being an aging physical plant.
Jersey City, get in touch with City Hall, express your opinion about keeping the Jersey City Medical Center, doing the first responders and the ambulance service, because one day we're all going to be in that ambulance, and hopefully Rob's in there taking care of us. Hopefully Rob is there dispatching it. But it's the truth. Eventually we will all be
I mean,
in there.
Pat, our cardiac survival rates are better than most places in the country.
And we get
So-
to see your guys, because
Right.
you bring them in on your television
Right.
show. You bring in these cardiologists. You get to know the doctors at the Jersey City Medical Center.
Yeah. Yeah, that's all. That you introduced all
Oh,
that. so-
God. I'm here. They shoot the show in his studio. I got to listen to these doctors. You're making me a hypochondriac listening to these guys. Whoa, you got that pain in your thumb?
Right.
Could be a brain tumor. Oh, man, I want to listen to this. But if you listen to these doctors who were involved with the Jersey City Medical Center, you see the technology, the experience, the quality of the physicians. And that's all here. And there could be repercussions if you don't get the ambulance service, right?
Well, yeah, I
And
mean,
it's gonna
we
change
have
things.
we have to kind of take a look at it, what the impact of that would be.
Contact Mayor Fulop. Tell him, go with the Jersey City Medical Center. Go to my website. Give me some emails. Tell me what you think. Support the Jersey City Medical Center. For Joe and Rob, I'm Pat O'Amelia. I'll talk to you during the week. Good night. Take care.